Hello and welcome to the filter and water cleaning video for our red-eared slider Frank. Say hey Frank. Just a quick overview of the tank. It's a 55-gallon tank. We have it filled up about halfway. As far as the water level, I like to keep it right about where the bottom of that joint is. That way he has enough buoyancy to be able to climb up this ramp to get on his basking platform. As you can see, I got these lights and the heat lamp I kind of have resting on here. There's a clamp that it comes with if you want to raise it a little higher, but we found that this is the perfect distance from the platform for him to get the proper heat. See, this is the food that he eats. It's natural aquatic turtle food, Zoom Ed, and it's the maintenance formula. One time we accidentally bought the growth formula, and that's actually for younger turtles to help them grow. And as you can see, Frank needs to not grow anymore because he's already huge. But red-eared sliders generally grow to the size of their habitat, so he should be good. So as far as cleaning the water, I'd say once every 4 to 6 weeks it needs to be clean. You can usually tell it's time to clean it by the look of the water. Right now you can see it's kind of a murky green. Normally the water might be a little murky, and that's fine, but when it starts getting a green shade like that, you know it's time to clean the filter. Some other times where you see the water a different color, occasionally, especially within the week or so after you change the filter, you could see a white cloudiness to the water. That's called a bacterial bloom. That usually happens when the whole water's been replaced, and or the parts of the filter have been cleaned too well. Because when you clean all that and replace all the water, what you're doing is you're flushing out all of that bacteria that's been maturing in the water, and it once the water starts getting dirty again, the natural the bacteria in the water doesn't know what to do with it, and so it turns white. So this is why that we clean the sponges and parts of the filter in the existing water, because we want to keep that beneficial bacteria so we can avoid that white bloom. If you do happen to get the white cloudy water, it's not a big deal. You just have to wait it out. Eventually the new bacteria will grow and it'll get used to it. But that's that. Just to give you a little overview of the supplies. The filter I use is a Fluval 207. It's actually designed for a fish tank, but I did a lot of research and it's actually quite efficient for this tank. It's designed for 45 gallons of water, up to 45 gallons. But as you can see in our tank, it's a 55-gallon half full, so it's below that mark. And it's really efficient at cleaning the water. For the light bulb, use a Zoom Ed nocturnal infrared heat lamp. It's the red color. They do sell white ones for daytime, but we found that his shell responds best to the red ones. We've tried different wattages, and the distance that we have set up right here, you need to get a 75 watt when it burns out. We tried a 50 watt and he was getting too cold. These are some of the supplies that you'll need for cleaning, not the peanut butter, that's extra. You have your phosphate pads. Now these are actually designed for a different tank, but this is what they had at the store, and here, I'll open the box. They're big round, but half of this is what you need. So I just cut them in half and they fit perfectly in there. So if you don't have the ones exactly for the 207, that's fine. This you can cut down to size pretty easily. Just some of the parts in there. You have your Biofoam Plus, these quick clear pads, your carbon bags. They're little bags that go in the bottom of the filter, and this is called it's basically ceramic media to help clean the water. It's always good to refer to the manual. If you turn to, I believe it's the second page, you can see all the different parts and how frequently you need to clean or replace them. And I circled the ones we generally use. For the carbon or zeocarb, you can use one or the other, depending on what's available. I have both. There we go, carbon and the zeocarb. They're interchangeable. This one I like a little better because it cleans a lot of the ammonia in the water too, whereas this is it does not. But either one will work fine. And you need to replace this every time you clean the filter. Throw out the old one and put that in. The other thing you need to replace every time you clean the filter is the quick clear pads. Also, I've seen them called water polishing pads. Those are the only two things you need to replace every time you clean the filter. The other pieces, the Biofoam, I'll turn the box around here. You can see the blue foam, the white foam. It says in the manual to replace them every 6 months, but it also says don't replace them all at once, because then you might get that white cloudy bacterial bloom in the water. So I actually haven't replaced any of those yet. I'm going to replace one of them for the first time. That's what they recommend, that you do no more than one a month. So like I'll maybe replace this, and then next time I clean it, I'll replace this, and so on. I don't have the other pieces yet, but I will get them. So yeah, kind of stretch out the foam and don't replace them all at once. Kind of, cycle through them. As far as what you'll need to clean the tank, a pipe cleaner, you need a dish sponge, not the ones you use for dishes. For the plastic pieces, I use Dawn dish detergent. I would not trust any other brand. And only for the plastic pieces. You don't want to use this for the foam, because you want to use the dirty water to clean the foam. And a bucket. You're gonna fill this up with the dirty tank water to clean your sponges in, because you want to keep as much of that old bacteria in those sponges as possible, and just kind of clean out the solids that are in there. A lot of people don't realize red-eared sliders are relatively dirty animals. They eat, they poop, they just cause a huge mess. That's why you want a good filter that can cycle through that. And well, as you can see, we have some fish in here. We kind of gave them a little area to be by themselves, where Frank can't get to them. But when they're out here, they're basically open season. Frank might eat them, especially if they get in his face. But anyway, that's all I can think of. Let's start doing the filter clean. So first thing I do is, I'm trying to one-hand this here. I turn off the heat lamp. So it's a dial. You just dial it all the way down until you hear the click, and set it down. It will be kind of hot, so don't set it on carpet. If it is on carpet, you could even set it upright like that, just to make sure it doesn't burn anything. And then these lights, I'll remove one. And so what we're gonna do, we're gonna take Frank out and move him to the bathtub with some water in it. You can put him in any kind of receptacle with water, like one of those plastic kiddie swimming pools, or anything big that he can swim around a little bit while you're cleaning the tank. A few times when I'm replacing all the water, I will take the fish out and put them in a little tank in the meantime. But the way I've been doing it, because I've been trying to be careful with the bacterial growth, I don't want to take all the water out. So I usually take the water out to maybe right at that joint here. That way there's still enough water for the fish while I clean this. And that way when I put new water in, there's enough of that old water to where the bacterial growth will be quicker and not like a start from scratch scenario. All right, so let's pick Frank up. Don't be afraid to just reach in there and grab him. He will probably hiss at you. I like to keep my hand in front of his face because that'll keep him inside and he'll be less likely to try to scratch you. Then just gently set him in there. And we have Tiny here who's going to keep an eye on him. They're both about as curious about the other. So Frank is okay in there. I just use regular tap cold water for him. And as you can see, he'll start moving around. Tiny's like, what? All right, so back to the tank. All right, so next step, I am going to I'm going to unplug the filter and plug in a bubbler that I'm going to stick in here because the fish need oxygen that they normally get from the filter, but when it's off, we use a little bubbler to give them oxygen. So let me go ahead and get that plugged in. All right, so I got the bubbler out. This is the end. You just want to stick that in the water. And then, let's see, here's the filter. I'm going to unplug that and plug the bubbler in. And there's the bubbler right there. And as you can see, it's pumping oxygen in there, so they'll be okay while we're cleaning this. Next step is to take as much water out as we can. These lights, you can turn them off. Be careful when you pick them up. They have glass underneath that's not attached. But just kind of... Oh, you also want to be careful that these don't fall in the water. I've done that before, and they will occasionally short circuit, and you need to replace them. All right, let me turn that off. I'm just going to lift this up and set this on the side. All right, so you see your two hoses from the filter. We keep the filter down below. This one right here is the output tube. This sends the clean water back into the tank. And this one over here is the intake. It sucks up all the dirty water and sends it into the filter. It's good to have it set up at least a half a tank's distance away from each other. That way the water has time to cycle through and you're not just sucking up clean water. All right, so we're going to use a pitcher. We're going to use our pitcher and we're going to fill the bucket up about 2/3 of the way up, maybe 3/4 with that water. And then once that's done, we're going to keep taking the pitcher until the water level is at that level that we wanted it to clean the water. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, we do have a rock cleaning vacuum. Let me get that. It's gravity driven. You can use that to get down in there and suck the water in and pump it into the bucket. It can also, it helps get some of the gunk out of the rocks. I found that it is very slow and not as effective. What I do with this water, I'll show you, I have my pitcher here. Use my hand and I rustle up the water. What this is doing is making all those dirty solids that are in the water kind of start floating in the water. And they will settle after a minute. So you want to be quick. But rustle up the rocks till it's really cloudy. And then start filling. It will smell like a fart. That's the turtle poop. It's just one of the wonderful things about having a turtle. So I'm just gonna keep doing that, and then I'm gonna stick my hand in there and rustle it up some more. So you want to get as many of those big particles out of the water as you can. So go in there. You know what, I'm just going to fill this up all the way and dump it outside. And then the next batch I get, I'll use to clean the pads. Try not to suck up any of the rocks. Because the rocks actually also contain some minerals and things that help the water stay healthy. Alright, so that bucket's pretty full. I'm going to take it outside and just dump it in the grass. And one thing I recommend doing too, remove the basking platform. Just put that in the sink and just kind of scrub some of the parts that have algae buildup. Don't use soap on it. I mean, I guess you could use some Dawn on it, but you just have to be very careful to completely rinse all the soap out of it. Also, when you stick your hand in there to rustle up some of the things, just be mindful of the fish. This is our Plecostomus. He generally stays on this side of the tank. He eats the algae and he helps to keep the algae level down. But anyway, I'm gonna keep doing the process of rustling up the water and dumping it out to get it to a lower level. All right, so now I kind of got the water level where I want it at. Like I said, just be mindful that the fish have enough water to swim around and make sure that bubbler is under the water. You'll see on the back walls of the tank and even in the front here, there's a little bit of algae buildup. Just go ahead and use a sponge. Not something really rough because you don't want to scratch up the glass, but just to kind of scrub this off. You can use the dirty water to do that. But I usually just wipe it down to get some of that algae buildup up. As you can see, our bucket's about 2/3 full. I'm going to use that water to clean the foam pieces. Minus the ones that we'll be replacing. We'll just throw those away. Let me move this over. So this is the filter. Now, the hoses don't have to be cleaned every single time, but because of the dirty environment and the turtle, I would recommend cleaning them at the very least every other time. And to do that, there's tabs on the side, and down here you just, oh, here I need extra hand here. Helps if you have two hands, but you gotta just lift the tabs on the sides. Hang on. Right there, I had to use two hands. Once you get the tabs, this just pulls up. And what this does is just locks the tube in place. You can set that aside. And you see the tube here. So all you do is just pull the suction cup and bring it over. And that's how you do the tubes. But I'm not going to do that this time. So I'm just going to slide this back on here. You should hear a click at the top when it snaps in, and push this bottom piece in until you hear it click also. Alright, so I'm going to leave those tubes alone for now. Because we're leaving those tubes in there, the first thing you're going to do is lift this lever up. This is going to seal off the tubes so that no water comes in or out of them. So push that up. Alright, so that sealed the tubes. The next thing, you're going to lift this red handle. This will detach the tube piece here from the base. And you can just leave that hanging while you're cleaning the filter. When you do clean the tubes, just you can take it off, but pull the hoses down, and these screw the tubes on. But like I said, we're going to leave those for now. So I'm going to lift that and just lift the whole piece here. And those are your tubes. Alright, so here is the filter. Let's see, I'm going to grab the power cord, and then I'm going to lift this and set this whole unit in the sink. Alright, so I think I got the camera angle right here. So this is my sink setup. I like to fill one side of the sink with hot water using some of the Dawn, and I also add a little bit of white vinegar in there to help break down any calcium buildups. This water is only for the plastic pieces we'll be putting in there. Do not put the foam in there. For the foam, we have our bucket full of dirty water. So let's go ahead and open it up. Again, be prepared for the smell. It might smell horrible, and there might be, you know, a 1/4 inch thick of poop buildup, but you just have to get through that. Alright, so your filter, I keep the cord out so it doesn't get wet. If it does get wet, it's not a huge deal. You're going to open these tabs on the side, and then underneath you'll feel there's tabs here. You just make sure those are loose, and then just lift up. It has a little bit of a suction, but you just pull that right up. Alright, so here's the inside. I'm just going to set that there. And the order you do things really depends up to you. Generally, I like to clean the head part first. I'm just going to set this over here, turn our hot water on. Alright, so hot water. I use the hose to get off some of the bigger solids first. This little piece has a little tab here. I pull that, and you can see there's buildup on the underside of that too. I'm just gonna brush that, and I'm gonna put this, it's a plastic piece, I'm gonna dump it in our soapy water. Next, I'm going to use our sponge. You can use a little soapy water if you want. Just get in there and make sure you clean it as well as possible. Don't use a lot of soap on this because it's harder to get it out in some of the parts. And be careful with this red spinny thing. It is kind of fragile. You don't want to accidentally get caught on that and break it. Next, grab your pipe cleaner, dip it in the water, and you want to get in this hole that actually goes up here to the tube, and just kind of clean that out. And then the other tube here, just do this, kind of get the tube in there and clean it out. All you're doing is just removing all the dirty buildup that's on this. Doesn't have to be perfect, but when you see that it looks pretty good, just give it a rinse over, especially through the tubes, because you don't want to leave any soap in here. And that's the headpiece. We're going to set this on a towel on the counter to dry. There's a rubber gasket piece, as you can see, that goes around. You can take that off. The instructions recommend to take it off once every time you clean it to every other time you clean it, and just rub some vegetable oil on it, just a little bit to lubricate it, and put it back on there. That helps with this seal. But if you feel it and it feels okay, I would just do it every other time. Alright, so I'm going to set this over here on our counter. Alright, so now the fun part. This is where the really dirty part of the filter is. Alright, so I'm going to dump out this excess water. Don't have to dump it all out. And then first you're gonna reach your hand in and pull up on this red piece, and this whole thing will come out. As you can see, you have a buildup of poop and other fun stuff. Just set that there. Alright, so what I like to do, I like to give it a quick hose down with the tap water, just to get some of those really big pieces of poop off of there. You don't want to do this too much because you don't want to rinse out all that bacteria. But just like that, just those big pieces. And we're going to take this and drop it in our dirty water. And repeat with the other one. And dump it in there. All right, then on the other side, you'll see two more white sponges. And these don't look too bad, so I'm just going to dump these directly in the bucket. And then this piece right here, just like we did the lid, I'm going to hose down to get some of the excess stuff off. This one has a lot of nooks and crannies, so make sure you turn it all over, front and back. And then it's still dirty, but that's okay. I'm going to stick it in our water here, in our soapy water. And now this other piece. This is a 3-tier piece that has a cap on top. Just pull the cap off. Rinse off the excess. Drop in the soapy water. Now, if I don't know how well you can see that, this there's a little red tab in here. You can pull that up. This is to help you easily lift it out of the filter. And you can see it's a 3-tier system. All right, so I'll set that aside. I want to clean this real quick. Go ahead and dump out the rest of the water and clean the inside of this. And I do like to use a little bit of soapy water. The reason I like Dawn, why I would only use Dawn, is because they do use this to clean oil off of marine life and animals. It is animal safe. In Frank's case, you don't want him to ingest any of this. That's why you want to make sure you rinse it very, very well. But it's safe to use on the pieces. So I'm gonna scrub that, get all the dirt off. Just look it over, make sure it looks clean, make sure there's no soap suds. If in doubt, just run some more water over it to make sure you get all the soap out. And just set this on your drying area. All right, so now this three-tier basket part. You're gonna lift the first basket up. And I'll put this in writing too, but the order that these are stacked in does matter. The top tier is going to have your phosphate pad. That's the green one I showed you earlier. That goes in the trash. And this is the charcoal bag. That also goes in the trash. So I'm going to see, dump that water out. All right, and I forgot to mention, you also want to have a cup because you're going to put your ceramic in there. All right, so the top basket, same deal. Spray out some of the excess poop, and soak it in our soapy water. All right, now the next level is the ceramic media. That's going to be in the center here. The ceramic media, I like to use the hose on it just briefly to get some of the extra pieces off. Only use cold water. Again, only use cold water for the ceramic pieces because the hot water has a tendency to wash out the bacteria faster. So just lift that, give that a little spray with cold water. All right, and this is what you're going to do. You're going to take your cup and you're going to fill it up with the dirty water, and you're going to dump that ceramic in there. There's your ceramic. I like to put my hand on it, give it a little shake. Clean that off a bit. You can dunk it in your dirty water to get some more. And repeat just a couple times. And that's it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to get all those big pieces off. So I'm going to set this aside. Let's see, turn our hot water back on. And the water. And then the bottom basket, you can see this red piece just slides right out. So the bottom piece, on top you have your polishing pad. That goes in the trash. And then you have, this is called the Biofoam Plus. I'm going to drop that in our dirty water to clean. I actually haven't decided which one I'm going to replace, but just pick one of the foam pieces and throw it out and replace it. I don't have the blue ones, so let's go ahead and replace the biofoam, the white pads that we saw. It's a 2-pack, you need 2, so you can throw the 2 that you took out. So whatever one you're replacing that month. And again, the manual says replace every 6 months, but you want to break them up because you don't want to do it all at the same time. Anyway, throw that out. We're going to throw out our polishing pad. Now all 3 of these baskets are the same size, so you don't have to keep track of which one is which, as long as you know what order the stuff you put in them goes in. These baskets are all identical as far as the actual recycling. I'm just going to kind of rinse out some of this extra mess in here. Alright, so now again you can do whatever order you want. I like to keep these pieces in the water to soak as long as possible. So I'm going to actually do the foam pieces now. I'm going to just set this bucket in the sink. You can do it on the floor, you can do it outside, wherever. This is the least fun part of cleaning the filter because you have to get your hands in there and you really have to scrub these pretty good to get all the poop and stuff off of them. You can see. All right, so stick my hands in here. This is the one I'm going to replace this month, so I'm just going to take that out. And I'm going to throw that in the trash because we don't need it anymore. All right, so you have your other pieces in here. Just grab your first one and you're just going to scrub it on itself, essentially. You're going to scrub it, you're going to dip it, and repeat that process until it looks fairly clean. For this one, you do want to be able to see as much of that blue as possible when you're done. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean because you do want some of that bacteria in there, but you want to get it as clean as possible. Scrub it on all sides. You can do this underwater if you want. Whatever you find to be most effective. Give it some squeezes. Look it over. I would say that looks pretty good. You can see the blue. There's a little bit of poop in there, but not a whole lot. We got the majority of it off. See, squeeze that out and set it somewhere you don't mind getting bacteria. I'm just going to set it on our towel here because I'm going to clean the counters when I'm done. Go in for your next piece and repeat the process. I've tried cleaning these in clean water, and sure enough, I got that white bacterial bloom, which in and of itself isn't necessarily harmful. It's just unsightly and isn't ideal for the turtle. because a healthy water has a whole ecosystem of bacterial growth, both bad and beneficial bacteria. And that was it. I just washed these 2 blue ones and this one, and I threw the 2 white ones away because we're going to be replacing them. So now the dirty water, just dump it out. You can dump it outside or down your drain or wherever. I like to rinse out the bucket because we don't want any bacteria growing in the bucket in the meantime. All right, cleaning that foam wasn't too painful. All right, next, I'm gonna add some soap to my sponge because I'm gonna want to get these plastic pieces as clean as possible. I like to clean them in hot water. So just work your way through them. Keep in mind all the nooks and crannies. You want to make sure you check them all to get them as clean as humanly possible. Again, they don't have to be 100% perfect, but the major thing is rinse it thoroughly to get all that soap out. All right, I do believe that's all our pieces. Drain that. Wash that out later. Now, as far as the sponge, you can, it'd probably be best to have 2 sponges, one for using the soap on the pieces, and the other one strictly for use inside the tank to scrub that extra algae off. You can use the same sponge, but you have to make sure you get all the soap out of it. All right, so I got my filter clean. I have the pieces drying. Next, what I'm going to do is I wipe down the platform. I put it back in. One thing I always make sure, the Plecostomus, the big black fish in there, I just kind of tapped him to make sure that he was on this side of the tank. He can get through to both sides, but I like to start him out in the safe zone. That way Frank doesn't get too curious with him. He does have an armored shell on him, so he is protected a little bit from the turtle, but we've had one die in the past. Anyway, so you got your water level like we left it. What we're going to do, we're going to leave the bubbler in there. We're going to use our garden hose, flush it out for 30 seconds, just let it run outside. Turn it off. We're going to put it in the tank, and we're going to use that to fill up our water. You can also use the pitcher and just do trips back and forth from your sink. That will take a long time, so it's really up to you or whatever your situation is, whether you have access to the hose. But the water level that we want to bring it up to is the bottom of that top joint. Right here. So let me get the hose. And it's good to have 2 people, but since it's just me, I use the clamp for the light. I use this just to clamp the hose to the side. Like this. Just make sure it's secure. And then I'm going to turn the hose on to about half power because I don't want too much water pressure to cause it to do crazy stuff. Oh. And Frank sheds his scales often. Pick out those pieces and just throw them away. Alright, so I got the clean water going in there. Now while that's filling, what you want to do, take this blue liquid stuff. This is basically the same stuff you would put in a fish tank to kind of condition the water when you're adding a lot of new water. I like to do maybe 3 big squirts of this into the water. 1, 2, 3. And the reason I like to put the new water in before we put the filter back together and install it, it gives the water a chance to settle any sediment that you built up while putting the new water in there. You can give that time to settle to the bottom. Alright, when it gets close, you can go ahead and turn your water off. That level looks good. I'm gonna pull the hose out. Alright, so we're back to our sink, so we can start rebuilding our filter. Got your main canister here. They don't have to be dry. Yeah, they don't have to be dry. So you can do one side. It doesn't matter which side you put in first. One thing I do like about this filter is you can't possibly put the wrong one on the wrong side. Well, actually, I lied. It's actually the same on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side it's on as far as these pieces go. So I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to put my foam back in here, the blue foam. And you can refer to the picture to see. Okay, so according to the picture, the blue foam goes under this handle. So just kind of push that in there. We are replacing the white ones, so I'm going to open up that box. These should need to be replaced again for 6 months. Got that in there. It does go up a little bit. That's fine. Just make sure those are in there behind the tab. And good, so just slide this in. Alright, next to your other side is where you're going to put your baskets. So what you're going to do, you're going to grab your first basket and the handle and slide it from the bottom like that. That way, as you stack them, they'll go on the handle. So the bottom basket, if you remember, that's where we put this black, it's called the Biofoam Plus. You can tell it has these grooves in here. According to the picture, it says place it so the bumpy side is facing down. So just drop that in there. And then on top of that pad, you're going to put a polishing pad. And that one you replace every month. You will see it's rather thick. It does squish down, so don't worry about it. Just set that on top. Push it down a little bit. If it sticks up a little bit, it's fine. And there's your first basket. Remember, you have to do this in the same order every time. Slide your second basket on top of that. And you remember what's in our second basket? That's right, our ceramic media. The official name for it here is Biomax. Anyway, just pour that in there. Now there's extra of this if you end up losing some or it doesn't fill up all the way. Just grab some more from the bag. And just sprinkle some on top there. There, like that. All right, and then your third basket. I'm gonna slide that on there. All right, so the top basket, we're going to put our carbon bag at the bottom. Let's see. Open up the outside bag. Here's your carbon bag. This is the Zeocarb one with the ammonia remover in it. What you're going to do is run cold water over this just to rinse out some of that initial cloudy material. You can see it wash out. Stick that in there, and then on top of that we're going to put the phosphate remover pad. Now remember, for this one, actually a knife actually works better for this. As you can see, half of this should work fine, so just cut it in half. A knife works best, unless you have really sharp scissors. See? And just set that in there. And it doesn't fit perfectly. Like I said, this is for a different size filter, but you can kind of cut it down. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit, as long as it fits. Like that. All right, and then you're gonna take your top and set it. Push the tab down and oh, I skipped a step. Use your handle here and drop that in your canister. And I lied. These sides are not equal, but you'll be able to tell because one of them, if it's on the wrong side, these baskets won't fit. Like that. And then put your cap on. All right, now grab the head piece. Make sure the gasket is back on if you took it out to lubricate it. Put this cap back on here. I can never remember which way. Oh yeah, okay, so you want this end facing up, this end facing down. Now, I never remember which side it goes on, but you just keep playing with it until, oh, I guess, there. That way it works. There. Push it down until you hear the click. So this ring here, you want this to be on top of the baskets where you see the circle. And I don't remember, I think it only fits on there one way, so I don't think you can accidentally put this backwards. But I'm gonna set that on there. I'm gonna hold these tabs out. I'm gonna push it down. Push it down until the crap goes away. I'm going to push the bottom tabs against the canister And while I'm holding those, I'm gonna lock the top tabs. And that should lock it in place. And there you have it, a cleaned canister. We're gonna put this back under the tank. We're gonna put the hoses in. This piece right here is a primer. This filter has a motor in it, but the motor is not strong enough to suck water up initially. That's what the primer is for. Do not fill this canister with water. You're going to install it back under the aquarium completely empty. And that's what this primer is for. Once the hose is in and sealed, you're going to use that, and that'll suck water up through the tubes, and the gravity should take over and it should fill up. And I'll show you that in a minute. And then once it's full and you don't see any more bubbles, then plug it in and the motor should take over from there. All right, so we're going to set this back up over there. All right, so I got my light on in here. All right, so I got this placed about where the hoses are. I got the cord wrapped around, ready to plug in. So I'm gonna take this, insert it so it's in there, and then I'm gonna push the red tab down to lock it in place. Then I'm gonna flip this tab down to open these tubes. And water's still kind of cloudy, but if you look over here, it is starting to fill up. Since we didn't clean the tubes, you might not need to prime it, but I like to do it once or twice just to be sure. Lift it up a couple times, and when you do that, you'll see bubbles start to come out. You basically want to wait until those bubbles stop. You can give it a couple more primes. Wait till those bubbles stop and then plug it in. So right now it's sucking water up, it's filling this canister. And I'm just waiting. All right, I think we're good. So I'm going to unplug the bubbler and plug in the filter. And you'll hear the motor turn on. You'll see some more air bubbles come out. Now, when this filter is in normal operation, it should be basically silent. You shouldn't really hear anything. If you hear water sounds coming from it, you know, like bubble sounds or slurpy sounds, that means there's some air still in the system, in the tube. You can prime it a couple times to kind of get rid of that. If it still does it, I would unplug the filter, prime it a few times, wait 30 seconds, and then plug it back in. It should be fine. If you can hear right now, you can't really hear anything, which is what we want. In fact, a lot of times it's hard to tell that it's actually running. I have to look at the output tube to see if I can see anything moving in there. Another thing you can do is just put your hand on the tube, and you should be able to feel a very subtle vibration of water moving through it. It's not going to be very strong. Same thing down here. You can put your hand on the tube. If you feel it vibrating, it's good. You don't have to worry about it. And that is it. At this point, we can put Frank back in. We can put the heat lamp back and clean up the counter. I like to clean up the bathtub to get all any bacteria Frank might have left in there. But yeah, feel free to leave any comments if you have any questions, or contact me, and I would be happy to help. All right, Frank's back in his tank. He's a happy turtle to be back in his surroundings. The water will stay looking dirty for a day or two. Just give it time. The filter will cycle through the water, clean it, and ideally in 2 to 3 days you'll have crystal clear sparkling water. Again, when we're installing this tank for the very first time and we're replacing all the water, you may see that white cloudy bacterial bloom show up. Just wait that out. It'll go away eventually. It might take a week, but it will go away.